Hey kids, it's Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. We are coming at you for Monday, March 7th.
Happy Monday.
Yes, indeed. Happy. We've survived the last two lunar cycles and we're fully into the new one. And we'll talk all about Mars and Venus today. It's going to be an interesting week ahead.
I can't wait. Michael, didn't our latest class just start?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about this because if you're hearing this episode today, Monday, March 7th, registration for my Diving into the Shadow class is still open. The class started this past Saturday, right? But most people actually do participate in my classes by tapping into the recordings. Live is great. I love when people come live, especially because there's one-on-one interactions possible with this class. But the registration will be open for the rest of today. So it's the next 3 Saturdays. You'll have to catch up with the recorded class to catch up with the work. But we will keep registration open to the end of today. So if you're hearing this podcast on Monday and you want to take this class, check it out at michaellennox.com under classes.
Awesome. I know that's a really popular offering, especially in this time when folks have things coming up and they want to see, hey, what is that?
That's right.
Know?
And shadow work is the best way, I think, to navigate change and transformation. And really, in case that's, amorphous to you as a concept, shadow work just says that when we're triggered, we look within. We don't live in a posture of blaming or shaming or pushing our sense of what's happening and the responsibility therein outside of us. We take a look at what's inside of us, and we know that we're in some work when we're triggered. And boy, are we all being triggered so much these days. It's a great time to do some shadow work. Check out michaellennox.com and that class if you want to join. And you've heard this episode on actually Monday, the 7th. There's actually something really huge happening today that connects to the process that we've been in through late November. The new moon last week did kind of put a button on it on the one hand. In other words, once we ended that lunar cycle, we were out of the 2 lunar cycles in which tremendous amounts of change and transformation and examining matters of the heart in a kind of brutal way came to a close. That said, Mars and Venus continued moving together, and today they enter Aquarius at the same time, and that ingress has a lot of meaning for us. But in order to kind of understand what we're going through now, I want to just recap Venus's journey over the last couple of months, because truly, if you look back to early November and you look now, everything is different inside your heart and mind. Nobody has escaped the change and transformation in the feeling spaces. So let's take a look at exactly what this journey has been since late November of 2021. At the end of November last year is when Venus entered territory that signaled we were about to go through a deep process. So I want people to be thinking, if you're listening to this, I want you to be thinking about where were you in your heart in mid-November? How are you feeling about the love, the intimacy that you have in your life? How much you related to vulnerability and a willingness to be vulnerable? And any of the ways that you habitually feel like you might be someone who blocks the giving and receiving of love, which we all struggle with as human beings. Giving and receiving of love is outrageously vulnerable. And wherever you were at in that sort of journey of love at the end of November got set into a process when Venus entered her shadow, signaling she was about to go retrograde and do some dicey stuff all through December, January, and February. So those weeks from late November to around the 3rd week in December, that was when Venus was signaling to us, hey, here's the vulnerable, intimate, loving things in your life that are about to take you on a deep journey into unconscious spaces. to work on some shit around giving and receiving of love so that everything that came up in your intimacy experiences from that period of late November to around December 19th gave you all of the data you might need to understand what was going to happen when Venus actually turned around on December 19th. So basically, you can think about the month of December as the big, juicy section of time where Venus was in the beginning of the month slowing down to get retrograde or go retrograde, I should say. And that entire time she hung out with Pluto, the great transformer. This was an entire month of deep change and transformation around love, intimacy, and vulnerability that some people were experiencing as absolutely brutal. I mean, I was personally going through stuff, and certainly my DMs were blowing up. But you can you can look back to the month of December and have a sense of where we're at now, integration wise, by examining what you were learning about you and love and vulnerability during the month of December and pretty much all of January. What I want you to be thinking about now, though, is more about how you responded when Mars entered this process. Because really, the juice of now isn't so much Venus and her retrograde, because that cycle completed itself with the new moon. What's juicy now is that Mars and Venus got to hang out together for so long that now Mars, the planet of embodiment, choices, and decisions, is still integrating what we've learned about love and vulnerability. And by them moving into Aquarius together today, there's a chapter change on this, which by the time this podcast episode is over, I think you'll have a deeper understanding of. So Mars entered Capricorn on January 24th, and it only took him about 2.5 weeks to catch up with Venus. What's powerful about that is anytime Mars and Venus get together, which they do every about 2 years, we get an integration between masculine and feminine as they live in us. Our decision-making abilities and how we choose, which is Mars, gets infused with a dose of feminine power, sensitivity, love, and forgiveness, Venus. But this time it's crazy because once Mars caught up with Venus on February 14th, they're together now for like 6 weeks. Because Venus is moving so slowly, Mars had a chance to catch up, and now they're just dancing together. That means that from February 14th and on, we've all been in a place where, though we've been in these deep changes and transformative experiences that have been a little bit emotionally brutal and tenderizing, we are actually been empowered to begin making new choices based on what we've been learning. They were together at the new moon last week, hanging out with Pluto again. They were all three together, which means that as we set the intentions that kicked off this lunar cycle, we are still benefiting from the fact that our decision-making planet and our love planet are still in Congress together. And today, they change signs at the same time. This is crazy. This is rare as it comes. Just the fact of Venus being slow enough that Mars got to hang out with her for 6 weeks is rare. But the fact that they enter a new sign together has really tremendous impact for how we will individually make new decisions with our greater, open, more vulnerable heart in tow. Aquarius is the mansion where we consider our relationship to the collective. The age of Aquarius is, in fact, going to be about a 2,000-year process of trying to create a global connectivity that comes through principles of peace not the polarized destruction that we're, moving through now. But Mars in Aquarius allows us to make decisions that are uniquely suited to just us. In Aquarius, we don't care what conformity looks like or what other people's decisions might be or what the status quo is.
Mm.
We think out of the box. We make big, risky decisions because Aquarius is also the sign of risk taking and outliers. But Mars is still hanging out with Venus. He doesn't get to act all masculine and renegade because his beloved is right next to him. And she is saying to him with great consistency since the 14th of February, hey, buddy, you're moving too fast. Don't make that choice. You got to honor my feelings.
Mm.
Temper your actions with what your vulnerability is informing you of. So Venus in Aquarius isn't afraid to go her own way, to say, no, 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 this is what I need, even if it looks different than what you think or what other people expect or what I used to think. Aquarius is the energy that says, I've changed how I feel. And even if that doesn't conform to how you think it feel, it's okay because I know who I am and I know what my feelings are dictating.
Sounds like a really affirming time.
I think it can be so. I think if you don't allow yourself to be pummeled by the old sense of wound or the vulnerability that is tender to be in, and therefore we sometimes shrink back from it, and we're willing to take vulnerable risks, this is a very affirming experience with the two planets that govern our embodiment and our emotional center together entering this new mansion. And they hang around in this place for another week or so. They don't start to separate till around the 12th or so of March. So they are close enough now that all of this week, we are being sort of given the opportunity to see how are we going to make decisions now that we've just come out of this profound heart opening. Take risks, but make sure you're still checking in with your feeling center. Be vulnerable, but not so much that you pummel under what somebody else wants from you that might be counter to what you now feel you deserve. It's such an interesting time this week to pay particular attention to what you're choosing and how you're choosing, because that mechanism has been completely rewired. Especially if you look back to early November before any of this started. And now, I promise you, you should see and feel an enormous difference inside of your heart. And now it's time to start putting those differences into actions and new choices as you go. A little note about something to come that I'll be talking about in later podcasts this month is by the end of this month, both of them, both Venus and Saturn, now no longer quite in the 1-2 step that they're in together now because they'll be separated, both will meet up with Saturn, the great teacher, which means that these couple of weeks of Mars helping us make new decisions with Venus's new openness in tow, we're going to be tested at the end of the month to see how well we're doing on keeping and yet being vulnerable and open while facing choices that might frighten us.
Jeez.
Well, I wanted to convey when we were in this difficulty that the new moon in Pisces was going to end it, but it didn't really end it. It put a button on it. But life goes on. And if you listeners are in any kind of narrative that still involves frightening, vulnerable negotiations with others, we're still in that process where what you choose and decide counts. Just make sure you're keeping your tender heart in the process as you go. Have at it. There is a beautiful, ongoing, yearly relationship that we have between the sun and Neptune. The sun is our conscious awareness. Neptune is the God consciousness. 4 times a year, the sun and Neptune have an experience of conjunction, square, opposition, second square, just like in the lunar cycle. When the sun and the moon are together in conjunction, that's the beginning of the cycle. The two planets download some consciousness. When they square, there's a crisis. When they oppose, there's a moment of reckoning and recognition about where we're at in the journey. That's the full moon. And the third quarter moon is where we're tested to sort of deliver the wisdom we've just learned. Any solar cycle does the same thing. When Neptune and the sun come together, we're in a newly upped kind of place of, hey, your conscious awareness is about to get downloaded with your spiritual connection in a moment that's not unlike an intention-setting new moon moment. Conscious awareness sun, Neptune unconscious, and our connection to spirit hanging out together, allowing us to re-up our relationship with working with the divine, working with the mystery, working with our spiritual practice. And that happens this week on the weekend, Saturday, for the one moment a year when we are most consciously connected to the mystery that is existence. 3 months from now, they'll square and we'll be in a bit of a spiritual crisis. 3 months after that, they'll oppose and we'll get a kind of reckoning of where we at with our relationship with spirit, and can we lift some of that up and let some of that go. And then 3 months after, the test comes, and then about a year from now, we'll be back again. What I love about the timing of this is what we've just been through in the last 3 months, because the last 3 months have changed everything from the skin in. And this is a download of skin out in the direction of a deeper connection to spirit.
Does this happen the same time every year, or it's roughly a year?
Roughly, because understand the solar cycle is clicking at a yearly pace of boom, year, boom, boom, right? We live by that cycle.
Right.
But every time that the sun hits the year cycle, Neptune's moved a little further. Right? So the conjunction will happen exactly here this year, but next year it'll be a little bit further because in a year, Neptune will have moved further into Pisces.
Got it.
So it's not the same time compared to the calendar year, but it does yearly dial in our conscious awareness with our spiritual connection. And that's happening over this coming weekend. Have at it.
All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show. We have a caller today. Our caller is Rex, who's actually one of my good friends. Rex, welcome to the show.
I love that.
Hey, thank you so much, Zoe, Michael. Glad to be here.
Rex, friend of Zoe, welcome to the show.
All right. So I had a wild dream last night, and I texted Zoe pretty much immediately about it. Essentially, what ended up happening was there was a sorority, and I was in a sorority in college. And so there's the sorority Alpha Phi, who was a different sorority than what I was in. They were throwing an end of the year party, and it was Christmas themed somehow, but essentially you had to dress up as a Christmas character. And so somehow I decided I was going to go to this party, even though I wasn't a part of that sorority. And I was dressed up as either a sexy Christmas tree or a sexy reindeer or something like that. And I just remember it was short sleeved and a dress. I had red bra straps that were hanging out of it. When I got there, then everyone was in their underwear. And I was like, oh, should I actually be in my underwear instead? And I had a red bra, candy cane underwear underneath what I was wearing. And I had said out loud to someone, like, oh, I don't know if I should stay in what I'm wearing or if I should go to my underwear because I look so hot in both of them. And someone walked by me and was like, wow, you don't need to be so cocky about it. As if, I don't know if it was like a jealousy thing or if it was just, wow, you're like really into yourself. All of that's happening indoors. And then eventually this party ends up being outdoors and it's like nighttime and it's dark. And I go up to this guy that I used to go to school with who was in a fraternity. And he's the one throwing this party now, suddenly. It's not their sorority, it's him. Him and I talk for a while. And then eventually I invite a bunch of my friends, close friends, including the friend group that I'm in with Zoe. I text all of them to come to this party. And then I'm on the phone with Zoe. I go to the back of this party and Zoe's house is in the back of where the party is. And Zoe comes out of a window while we're on the phone to like come to this party with me. So then we go back to this backyard kind of setting. Everyone's hanging out and whatever. And I'm playing a game where mostly like my friend group is playing this game. And then this guy that I don't know comes up to me who's in some other fraternity that's a new fraternity in this scenario and gives me a note basically from the guy who was throwing the party saying, hey, I had to leave. This is actually like a sketchy party and I'm afraid the dean's going to find out about it. So I had to leave and don't get in trouble, kind of a thing. And so then I start freaking out and I'm like, oh my God, if the dean thinks that I threw this party, I'm going to get in trouble because I got in trouble for using this space and throwing this party the last time. Like it's a party that's not supposed to be thrown. And I had thrown it before. And so then I start freaking out and I'm like, oh my God, I have to leave. I have to get out of here. And so I start leaving and I have 3 items in my hands and I don't remember what they were, but the dean walks in and doesn't see me immediately. And so I run to the parking lot and try to get in my car. But by the time I get to the car, the dean is in the parking lot. And so I hide behind my car and I like throw these items under my car. And then I see the dean, he's in a car that's parked behind mine. His car and the car next to his are blocking my car in. Once he's in his car, there's police dogs that are sniffing around looking for me. And so then I get into my car and I'm able to back out diagonally from the 2 cars that are blocking me in. And I back all the way back into the parking lot trying to find an exit, but there's no exit except to go behind and in front of the dean to try to get out. So then I drive as fast as I can to get out of this exit. That kind of gives you, I think, the like general scope of the dream. That was the dream.
So you were in a sorority in college?
Yes, I was.
So some of this is actual consciousness from your life. What's your personal associations with Christmas?
So my mom's a pastor.
Okay.
I guess that as a holiday was always a really big holiday. You know, I did a lot of singing at Christmas Eve services and things like that growing up.
So it's a significant holiday for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And the guy who is throwing the party is a guy you used to go to school with in life?
Yes.
Ah, well, tell me about him. I need 2 or 3 adjectives to describe him.
I would say he's really funny and like gregarious. He's someone who's highly successful now in his career.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. This other guy that shows up in the dream who's friends with the host, he was just a random dream character?
Random dream character. And what's interesting is he was wearing all gray and his face had gray on it and his like hair was dyed gray.
That's funny because you're all in red.
Yeah, mostly red.
Good memories of sorority consciousness from college?
Yeah, mixed for sure. Like mostly good. Like I loved being in a sorority. I loved the whole like Greek life thing. I liked being social like that. I got complicated once I came out as queer and was like navigating queer identity. And that's when I became a lot less involved.
Oh, but this dream is all about that,
Yeah.
baby. Oh, yeah. How do you view Zoe in your friendship with them in terms of acclimating to your queerness?
I mean, I feel like Zoe is just someone I can fully 100% be myself around. 100% comfort at all times.
Ding, 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 ding. You nailed it. That's helpful. So sorority and even Christmas and party, while each of those could yield interesting sort of details of meaning or shades of meaning, in general, we are talking about your social experience, not personal, but how you interact out and about in the world. Because a party is a social experience. Christmas is a social holiday. You are going to a party. So you're in consideration of the communities that you dwell in, the communities that you used to dwell in at college age, and who your reflected community is now, right? So the party kind of starts with the consciousness of this is who I used to be socially. How many years ago was college? Just so I
12 years ago.
Okay, so a decade ago, this was my consciousness of socializing. This was my sexuality. This is what I showed people, my bra, my panties. I'm a sexual being in this first part of the dream, and it ain't queer, at least not in the face of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the whole first part of the dream is who you used to be. I'm also curious about the context of this moment where you're like, I look so hot in both of them. First of all, I love that you're the one who said that, right? The witness of the dream is who you are in your center of your consciousness. So that's you expressing, I know who I am. And it's interesting. I'm gonna throw this in. I can wear the costume, which I will equate with your old identity that was masking the more authentic queer identity beneath. That's the costume you were wearing. The bra and underwear, though still red and appropriately festive for the party, is more like my authentic self. I'm showing you who I am underneath my clothes. And you're saying, it's all hot.
Yeah.
Who I was fine and hot. I can put on a costume and sort of manage who you see me as, and I'm hot there. But I can also reveal myself fully and vulnerably. Underwear, I'm hot that way too. And this dickish passerby is just the thought you have inside your mind of, don't get too cocky, don't be too this or that. It's a thought in you. It's not his dream.
Right.
It's a thought you have of, wait a minute, I got to limit what I show. Don't be too celebratory for who I am. We all have that inside of us. We all have inside of us the part of us that's ready to express and be visible and show the world who we are. And then we have the thoughts that say, I don't know if we should do that. And this passing guy, I think that's what this guy is. There's something interesting about this man that you knew from college is the host of this party, because I'm going to sort of go that his gregariousness and his funniness is about social experiences, right? We don't talk about someone as being funny and gregarious unless we see that out in the world as a social dynamic, a way to meet the world that says, I'm here, I bring a lot of energy.
Right.
One of the things you said before we started recording the segment was how animated you are. And we had a little joke about I'd go toe to toe with you for gesturing, right? So there's something about who you are that is animated and gregarious and funny. He represents that. And I like that he's successful in his life now, because then we turn that around as a part of you. Remember, it's not his dream. It's that the party is the consciousness. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at how I socialize. I'm looking at my queer identity versus my old identity. And the part of me that is saying it's time to do this is the part of me that enjoys success. A sense of who I am is gregariously reaching the world.
Well, and it's interesting because he's a highly visible person at this point, and I'm reaching a point in my business that I run where I'm starting to become much more visible than I have before.
Yay! I love that. Thank you for adding that to this information, because then it deepens my conviction of where we're sort of going with this dream. I suspect that the easiest way, like if we had more time and we were sitting in private, I might go a little deeper with what is this dean? This is an authority figure, a male authority figure that is the danger for you. I'll get caught. I'll be in trouble. We've got to leave. Don't get in trouble. All of this emphasis that says this character means you ill for being who you are, for living out loud, for throwing a party for yourself. There's a part of you that says, no, you can't. You must be smaller. Don't get bigger. Don't be as visible as this dude is now in your career. In fact, this is the part of you that says, I am not going to allow you to even go any further. I'm going to block your car in. Cars in movement are symbolic of us moving through our lives, being effective, powerful, and in motion. The Dean is blocking you from moving to the next iteration of your sense of self. And somehow the Zoe piece is what, to me, is the linchpin in all of this. Zoe is the part of you that understands your full, authentic self. Unapologetic, completely gotten. That's why Zoe, who does that for you in waking life, is in your dream saying, I get me, I know me, and I'm expanding and growing exponentially in my life. But as I like to say, if you don't look at where you're saying no to your expansion and your growth, how can you step more fully into your expansion and your growth? So this dream is giving you some really sweet, I don't know if sweet's the right word, but really clear images of limitation. The part of you that says to yourself every once in a while, you're not that hot, babe. And the part of you that would stop your movement because you don't conform. Dean and conformity feels connected to me somehow. Dean is about keeping structure and rigidity and keeping all those young college students from being too self-expressive so that things don't blow up. The Dean is authority and behavioral structures. And so these two characters in your dream are the ones that need your attention so that you can have a visit with the part of you that's feeling constricted as you're actually expanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, just to put in one last piece, it's interesting because I've done some work around having fear of, when I was at that college age, getting to a point where I was very self-expressive, but also was very harmful in many ways towards others, right?
Ooh,
And I've worked through a
yay.
lot of that now. I became really small and really insular to work on that piece that did need working on. So I was acting in the way I want to act in the world and treating others well. Now that I do that, I'm ready to once again have a more, vivacious, open life.
Yeah, expansive movement into the world to be bigger, more visible, more passionate. Red, very much a color of passion and groundedness.
Right.
Damn, I love this dream, and I love that you know Zoe, and that this came out of a dream that you had on the day that we were, recording the podcast, and here you are. I love that too. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yes. Thank you so much, Michael. Thanks so much, Zoe. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the Daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.